The Nintendo Alarmo has officially been out for over a year, and I've used it almost every single day. So, what do I think about it? Is it worth it after one entire year? Has it changed my lifestyle for the better? Well, I'm going to tell you all of this, because my oh my, I have quite the experience with the Alarmo, both good and bad. There are some things I really do enjoy about it, and then there are also some things that are just blatantly wrong with it, or I have issues with, and all that stuff. So, let's talk about it. Let's start going through all of my categories of things I feel like we should discuss when it comes to this silly little Nintendo alarm clock. So if you don't know what Alarmo is, it is a alarm clock that Nintendo made for some reason. We're not really sure why Nintendo decided to release this, and it was so crazy back when they announced it, and when they released it, they were like, hey, we want there to be an alarm clock in your room, which was such a tease because at that time we were literally waiting for any news on the Nintendo Switch 2. We've been hearing rumors about it at that point. Everything was just kind of starting to lead up to the Switch 2, and then pretty much Nintendo fans had heard about a new health device or some sort of device that was going to be released because of like patents and all that stuff. And not that long later, we randomly just got this dropping, Nintendo Alarmo. And I feel like the position that Nintendo was trying to put this device in was just that, an alarm clock, a fun alarm clock with Nintendo sounds. And that's really about it. In the first reveal trailer, they showed off that, the alarm wouldn't shut off until the sleeper got out of bed, which was a very interesting concept. And actually makes perfect sense for an alarm clock. I mean, think about it. If the alarm clock can sense you getting out of bed, it won't shut off until you get out of bed, thus being a good alarm clock. It would have done the trick. Like, it's weird that Nintendo was even doing this in the first place, and I think that was my first impressions of it overall. Why in the world would Nintendo be making an alarm clock? But the more I thought about it, I think this is just Nintendo wanting to be in your every single day life. They want you to constantly be reminded of Alarmo and everything Nintendo related. They want you to wake up to The Legend of Zelda. They want you to wake up to Mario, Pikmin, so that us Nintendo fans can be epic. Now, a lot of us are probably like, hey, wait, I have my iPhone or I have my smart device. Why can't I just use an alarm on that? Well, I think Nintendo knows that everyone has an iPhone or whatever in their room, or most people do at this point, but this is absolutely for the more child audience, I would say. A younger audience that doesn't necessarily have their phone in their room, maybe doesn't even have a phone or any sort of device, that parents can just give them, and then they have an alarm clock to wake up for school, and it's fun, and it has Mario, that guy you like to play on your video games. So I think that's actually the core demographic. This is for young children who don't have a smart device, but also, that being said, I mean, I've been using it for a year, so what does that tell you about me? Obviously, adults can use this, and I know some people, my brother uses this alarm because he doesn't want his phone in his room, so he just sets up his alarm. He bought an Alarmo just recently, and he's actually really been enjoying it because, his phone doesn't need to be in the room. Now, my phone is in my room, and it's right in front of my Alarmo, and sometimes I even set both alarms. If I really got to wake up for something important, I'll set both alarms. But anyways, that was my initial expectation. That's kind of where I think Nintendo is trying to market this Nintendo Alarmo. But let's get into how I've been using it, how my feelings are about it, and just stuff like that. So I did a video on my main channel about my experience with it for the first week, and I pretty much came to the conclusion that it was cool, that it was kind of annoying in some ways because it would just play loud noises and all that stuff. My first week, I already knew that there were some things wrong with it. First of all, any sound you play, doesn't matter what you play. I think that my biggest issue with it, even still to this day, is that when the alarm goes off, you have all of these Nintendo sound effects that just blast you. So if you have the Splatoon music playing in the morning, not only is there epic rock and roll music, which isn't the problem because you chose to do epic rock and roll music, but there's also ink splattering everywhere that you hear. There's boxes breaking. There's noises from the Inklings making noise. And I find those noises being the worst part about the alarm. Let me give you another example. In The Legend of Zelda, those alarms, they have this boulder sound effect. And the music behind it is really nice, but the boulder is so obnoxious and loud, you can't even hear the music. And for me, when I wake up, I want to hear like soft and fun music, something that gets me awake and feeling ready for the day. I don't want to hear boulder smashing. I don't want to hear ink blasting everywhere. And that was really my main issue with it when I first tried it out, and still to this day is a huge red flag, you could say. Now, I figured out some sounds that don't have these really annoying sound effects, but for the most part, I really hated that most of these songs, even though they were really good, just had horrible music added to it. Like, they have Mario Kart, and the Mario Kart music is epic, but then you start hearing like coins going off. You hear engines roaring and all that stuff. It's just like, I hated the sound effects. So I really wish, and they have haven't added this yet, but after 1 year, I would love it if they just removed any of the sound effects. I just want to hear the music. I don't want to hear the sound effects. And I get that the sound effects will wake you up faster because, they're sound effects and they're annoying and they're not, it's not supposed to be something you just listen to in bed because you'll fall asleep to it or whatever. They want you to wake up to these sound effects and to annoying things in the world, but I don't want the sound effects. I just don't want them. I'll wake up to the regular music. It's fine. I don't really care. I've only found 2 sounds that actually have decent music with no sound effects, or very little sound effects that aren't ear bleeding in the morning. That is the Legend of Zelda. He has his hanger on and it goes and that is the best song. That's such a perfect alarm. I actually love that alarm so much. It is baked in my brain from listening to it almost every day for the last year. And then there's the also Brewster's Cafe sound, which is the classic boom 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 boom. He is talking in the background, but it's not horrible. There's a good selection of songs here, but I only found 2 that I even remotely want to wake up to because they're not blasting me with random sound effect nonsense. And they're both good. I found them. I'm happy with them. Those are my daily drivers, and that's great. But has the novelty worn off? Well, actually, not really. I think these are pretty decent songs. I think the idea of a Nintendo alarm clock is really fun. And I don't think the idea of a Nintendo alarm clock, that novelty has worn off. If anything, it's grown on me a little bit more, but there are some things that I kind of wish they changed about this Alarmo. So obviously, yes, like I said, the sound effects, but I think another really big issue with the Alarmo is the control of it. Actually controlling how to use these sound effects, navigating menus and all that stuff. It's difficult. It doesn't make any sense. So there's a little knob on the top. There's a button that can spin, and then there's a mail button on it, which is for mail, which you barely ever get unless there's updates. And then there's a back button. That little spinny thing on the top, that's difficult to use. I very often turn it the wrong way, or I don't know. It's just not that good. It's not a good way to control an alarm clock. I wish it was either, touchscreen, which would be obviously a little bit more expensive, which I'll come back to the expensive part, but I wish it was touchscreen, or even if there was simple left and right buttons. That would just make it so much easier. This button on top also acts as a little bit of a light. There's a little yellow light that flashes in the morning and kind of lights up the room. And if you accidentally sleep in, it'll shine red and the music will be really intense. So I get why they need that light. It's just difficult to navigate with this spinny thing. I also feel like it's a little bit delayed. It's obviously not the fastest device because it doesn't need to be fast or powerful or whatever, but I mean, it's kind of laggy in some spots. It goes at 30 hertz. I get they want to keep the cost down, and it is just an alarm clock, so who cares? It's something I've noticed as a techie guy, but most people won't. No, that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, the controls are a big thing for me that I really just didn't like. But let's talk about this motion sensor or the gesture thing now. Do I actually use it? And do I find that the alarm clock actually wakes me up by getting me out of bed that way? Well, here's the thing about me. I have something known as a wife. Yes, I have the best wife in the world. However, because I have a wife, I can't really use these motion tracking features. So, like it says on the box, you need to go into button mode, not the regular mode. So I actually don't use the motion sensors or whatever, and I just have to go over and click the button every morning and get it to stop. Now, that's fine. I'm fine with not having to use the motion sensors. I think it'd be helpful, and I do think it'd be annoying at times, but the button works fine. I'm fine with the button. The most annoying part about the button, though, is that when you actually click the button to stop the alarm, you have to then twist the alarm clock in one way, which I always forget which way to twist it, and then you got to click the stop button, and then it'll stop. Like I said, navigating is a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. I haven't actually used the motion sensing stuff that often, but I remember when I did use it in the first 2 weeks or month and all that stuff. I will use it if I can, but I never actually found it that good. It works. I just, whatever. A button mode's a button mode. I'm fine with the button mode. Another issue that I think the alarm clock has is the ongoing support for it. Now, Nintendo has done some very good things to it, like they've added the Animal Crossing alarm clock, which is great. I mean, again, like I said, the Brewster one of my daily drivers. They also added Mario Kart 8 sounds before the Nintendo Switch was even announced, or maybe it was after the Nintendo Switch is announced. Regardless, they added Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sounds. Kind of sucks that they're not Mario Kart World. Well, that's my next point. They are not adding any new sounds. They're not adding any support for new games, just the very big ones. We got Legend of Zelda, Splatoon, Pikmin. We have a 35th anniversary Mario one, or maybe a 40th anniversary. I don't know. There's a retro Mario one. There's Ring Fit Adventure, which is probably the most obscure one out of all of them. Okay, Ring Fit Adventure, sure. Hurry up and make a Ring Fit Adventure 2 so I can get fit. So they're not adding any new ones. Like when Tomodachi Life comes out, know, they better add a Tomodachi Life one. That would go so hard. Or like Metroid Prime 4 or Pokemon. Imagine if they had a Pokemon sound. Oh my goodness. So while I'm happy they did support with a couple of sounds, they definitely could add just a few more. I guarantee they could have added just a little bit few more. Now, I will say there are some quality of life features that they added. Like when you're scrolling through the sounds, you can actually preview them and listen to them before you set it. Back when I first got this, like in my first week or even the first 6 months or whatever, I had to blindly set these alarms and then set it to go off in 1 or 2 minutes so that I could actually hear what I'm even listening to. Now you can actually preview them while you're going through the sounds, and that's definitely the best quality of life feature that they added. And I actually didn't even get these updates until much later than they were available because I didn't want to set up my Wi-Fi password. Like I didn't want to set up my Wi-Fi because I had to enter my Wi-Fi password on the alarm clock. I think that's how I had to do it. Or maybe you had to scan your phone. I remember something being really tedious setting up your Wi-Fi. But at this point, you know, I like the Alarmo. I like the fact that, you know, I'm a Nintendo Switch guy. I'm a Nintendo guy. Like my family knows that I like Nintendo. So just having a Nintendo alarm clock is so quirky of me to do. But I think it's cool. I like the idea that Nintendo made an alarm clock and they're selling it. And, you know, I have one. It's just so odd. And I feel like I'd be missing out if I didn't at least try it out or have one. And, you know, it is good. I do like the alarm clock. It's a little much at times, but I like what it does. I don't love how it looks. Like it looks too child friendly. If they could just make that a little tiny bit sleeker or maybe give us like a black option or whatever, I'd probably still get the red one, but still, I'm proud to own one. Yes, that's right. You heard me. I think the biggest issue with it overall is the fact it's $100. And I think they even increased the price if I'm not wrong. But yeah, it's an expensive device to purchase, especially for its purpose. $100 for an alarm clock. That's crazy. That's a lot, especially when most people who can even afford to buy that $100 alarm clock have phones or some sort of other smart device. I'm very curious to know how well it's actually doing. How many people have bought it? I feel like just content creators are buying them. But anyways, we'll see. Let me know if you have an alarm clock or the Nintendo Alarmo, or if you just use your phone or something. Thank you all for listening to me ramble about alarm clocks. It's been a hoot. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Consider liking and subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.